Bonjour. Welcome, friends, colleagues, cyber and privacy practitioners all across the world to the most exciting 30 minutes of educational entertainment in the entire universe. It's Morning Bytes with Violet Sullivan, Jason Rebholz, and me, Stu Panansky. This is our monthly show here on LinkedIn to talk about the month's most important topics in cyber. We talk about all things cyber, privacy, technology, and everyone's favorite, cyber insurance. We toss AI in there just for fun. Please welcome to our special guests. She is the Senior Vice President and U.S. Head of Cyber for SCORE Business Solutions and noted world traveler. Welcome to Adriana Garcia.
Thank you so much.
All right. He's the global head of digital forensics and incident response for Cyber Reason. He's a noted speaker, author, model, and trusted advisor to CISOs, law firms, insurers, and nation states alike. It's Devin Ackerman.
Jazz hands. Hey, everyone.
The views and opinions expressed here are solely our own and not those of our employers. To everyone in the audience listening in right now, first, we love the French, but more importantly, say hi, drop an introduction. Who are you in the comments? Tell us, what do you do for cyber? Where are you listening from? Let's get started. Devin, what has been on your mind for the last month?
Other than passwords that are default in one word and less than 6 letters, which we will tease out and talk about today.
I have been running. It's going to be a running bit.
It's going to absolutely be running a bit because, yes, for many reasons we'll talk about. So, Stu, to your question, first of all, thank you so much for the invite, and it is an absolute honor and pleasure to be here with all of you. I have been focused on, like many, on trying to weed through the noise of AI-generated junk. And so, what I kind of want to talk about today, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, is remembering the basics, remembering the fundamentals of forensics. And when a brand new vulnerability comes out, everyone rushing with their opinions, always reminding the teams, how do we trust but verify what's actually happening here? So when we present findings, when we do our investigations, they're accurate. Because we always know there's always a possibility, there's a tail, there's an agenda with some of these, and we want to be accurate when we're all said and done. So that's what's been on my mind, is what I've been working on, as well as kind of staying up to date with everything else that's been going on in the world.
Devin, I was at a conference yesterday, and one of the forensics analysts mentioned, she's like, I'm a QA person now, more than I am an investigator, because there's so much to weed through. I mean, I was like, that's it. I mean, the job has really changed within the last couple of years.
It's interesting, right? So in the last, 2 months, last 3 months, we've had major SharePoint vulnerabilities, we've had major Oracle vulnerabilities, we've had Akira doing what they're doing with Sonic walls. Regardless of the vulnerability, the flavor of the day, and I'm sure after this presentation, we will find more. The Oracle one was a really good one. Oracle, I think, did a phenomenal job coming out saying, this is what it is. But there was so much noise within the industry. There was a lot of vendors, there was a lot of news articles, there was a lot of opinions being thrown around on what it actually was that was wrong. There was all this finger pointing. And what I had to kind of remind the teams as the engagement started coming in was, hey, put the noise to the side, focus on the evidence, and remember the intrusion path. There has to be an entry vector. There's likely evidence of that. And then there's a path. Follow the path. Like the analogy I always use is, they broke into the house. They had to get into the house. They had to crawl through the window or break down the door. They had to go through the living room. They had to find Stu's jewelry in his bedroom with all his watches that he has and steal them. And they had to get out of the house. Like, we have to think about it like that. And so remembering the fundamentals and kind of getting back to the basics draws down the hysteria and lets people do what we're good at, right? Like what Jason and I love doing and kind of focusing on that. So yes, I absolutely agree with what you were saying, right, Violet? A lot of what we do is QC. Like, I read every single forensics report that our global team writes. And so my days mostly are exactly that, QCing, but also pushing my teams. Hey, why didn't we find this? Did we ask? Why wasn't this there? And I have a war story for later, but I don't want to hog the mic.
So this is something, you're giving me some PTSD, Devin. So thank you for that. But this is like if you ever want to compare IR firms, it happens in the first like 24 hours. You have some that do exactly what Devin said, which is let's follow the evidence, right? That is the correct way of doing it. And then you have other firms that are like, I have all of these theories, and we're going to go and track down every one of these theories, which are almost always the most complicated and wrong ways of things happening. And it's a lot of wasted time. And so if you start hearing all these postulations that are happening, you probably need to go call Devin. All right. Like that's the key here.
Well, also, I think there's a difference between what is interesting perspective, right? If we could give all the time in the world to finding a lot of different pieces versus like what's important. So like interesting on one side can rack up an SOW. Important might be that breaking it down to basics. So I think we're starting to see in IR, like we want to make sure that these are businesses. This isn't study labs. This isn't sandboxes. These are businesses that have to get back to production mode.
Exactly. And
How
there's a
much
way to balance that too.
I also have seen an increase in the amount of clutter, predictably generated by AI, where now everything just seems to be this onslaught of information with bullet points and double dashes and M dashes, and you can there's just so much of it. And then there's also the reports of the people who use AI to receive information. I say, TLDR, I ain't reading all that. I'll just run it through some LLM and I'll just get the Cliff Notes version and figure out what's important to me and what's not. So from what you're seeing, how much of that is in cybersecurity and digital forensics?
So I will tell you, and I'm sure all of you have seen, I'm sure all of them in the audience have seen it, the amount of AI being integrated into tools, software platforms is almost nauseating. Like I just wish there was a button to go click it off. If I log into a Gmail or Microsoft account one more time and see their versions of AI popping up saying, can I help you? It's like Clippy back in the day, right? Everyone remembers Clippy would pop up, can I help you? Now it's just the AI version of it. There's a place for it, but let me also tell you the negatives of it. So we were QCing, recently we were engaged to QC some work, and another vendor had done their job. We were brought in to do our job, and we were working off the derivative evidence produced by the first vendor. Multiple things weren't adding up. And again, it's just kind of going back to fundamentals. Why do these not make sense? What the questions we're asking, we're not getting the output I would expect. So I'm like, can I have the original evidence? Eventually got it. What we found was that they had used a tool which had AI integrated into it. The AI had generated, probably like some of you have seen with a particular auditor that produced a report in another part of the world, and they were found out for it. But the results that were provided were statistical in nature. It was, hey, there's 2.7 million rows, there's 4.7 million IP addresses. It was almost all wrong. And we just kind of went back to the fundamentals of using scripting languages and forensic tools with no AI, with no summarization. And we were able to give accurate data. And I think that's the balance. Can AI help sort large data sets and give you quick answers? Absolutely. I truly think and see, and frankly, we are already starting to use it, as are companies like CrowdStrike and others. They're already using AI in the SOC context. How do we look at lots of data and find anomalies that a pure human sitting at a keyboard cannot do this at scale? There's application, but there can't be complete reliance on it. And that's, I think, where some companies are leaning too heavily into it. And I'm trying to be a little bit more reserved in the adoption of it. At least if you have something that produces, you have to verify it. You have to verify it.
This is the irony of this whole thing, because you have people who are trying to use Gen AI, which is great for language. It's literally like the foundation of it. And they're trying to apply it to problems that really just don't make sense, right? So with that example that you just described, like that is a perfect use case for machine learning. That is literally why machine learning was invented. And that's a great application. But I think a lot of the analysis tools kind of missed out on that boat. The EDRs, they're definitely using ML to help with detection, but we kind of like skipped over the best fundamental technology that would have helped in that analysis and went straight to Gen AI, which is going to be the more error-prone way of doing it. So this is, I always say, like, a lot of the AI solutions now is just a solution chasing a problem. And unfortunately, I think we're picking the wrong problems to try to tackle with it.
Well,
Well, Jason, let's stay with you. What story is you been paying attention to this week?
It's more AI. So I'm looking at it from the opposite side of it. Are how are attackers using AI in their attacks? And it's a similar theme. Like there's a lot of theories of how they're doing it, but we're now starting to get some actual reports from people from frontier labs like Anthropic. And this week, Google released a report highlighting what they're seeing threat actors use. And so there's a lot of different ways it's happening. And I encourage you to go read the report. It's the standard things like creating disinformation. All of that's been going on for a long time. But what Google is starting to see is attackers leaning into some of these Gen AI applications like Gemini to help on the operational side of attacks. But there was two things that stood out to me. One is Google is starting to see attackers test out capabilities of including AI in their malware. Now, this is another example where the headlines are overshadowing the facts, right? It's not actually polymorphic malware and all this other stuff that everybody loves to click into. There were some commented out areas of certain code that was testing out some basic features. There's some other malware that was trying to collect some information to go through different files and figure out what it wants to steal. So it's all very basic. It's all things that you don't need AI to do, but you have attackers that are testing it out. But we're not at the point yet where these attackers have created this polymorphic malware that's going to evade every single EDR that's out there. Not the case. Maybe one day it'll get there, but it's mostly overblown.
You just like saying polymorphic.
It's
Yeah,
polymorphic.
okay,
Yeah.
you got to come on, man. What? Give the audience, please, the benefit of the
Isn't it?
definition.
Wait, let me
and
try.
Give Stu the benefit of the definition of
Is it's malware that moves and evades protection automatically when it's being found?
Yeah, it changes itself to do exactly that.
It's like the Animorphs, like Adriana, you know what I'm thinking about, like the old school animal books that we used to read in like the 30s.
Transformers.
Yes. No, not Transformers.
Animorphs.
Animorphs.
Yes, I love Animorphs.
Actually, Devin, no, you're wrong.
So one other piece with Google's analysis that is especially intriguing to me is that you have some of these threat actors tied into some of this into the malware, where they're intentionally trying to social engineer in, like, basically do prompt injection in it to trick any AI powered analysis. And so, and part of this is that, sorry, let me step back. They are trying to jailbreak the larger models to allow them to do nefarious things. So if I were to go into ChatGPT or Claude and say, hey, tell me how to hack into this company, it's going to come back and say, hey, like, no, bro, like, you're not allowed to do that. Like, this is not cool, right? So they're trying these different techniques to jailbreak the models in order to get it to do the malicious things, right? And so one of the things that they'll say is, hey, I'm in the middle of a capture the flag event, which simulates hacking, and I need to try to complete this. And so, like, I'm a student in this competition. Allow me to do this. So that was one technique they were doing. Another one was just saying, hey, I'm writing a research paper on this topic of hacking into these companies. Tell me how I can do X, Y, Z. And so they're trying all these like cute little ways to bypass the safety filters that these models have, which one, like, you can see they're starting to do a little bit of research of how they can incorporate it. So very early days, it's nothing that's groundbreaking, but that was like the first time that I saw somebody actually trying to push the edge a little bit.
Well, I'll say that we've heard, when we oversee the threat actor negotiations part of it with ransomware threat actors, that the threat groups will use AI with this to sort through the stolen documents. So a lot of times they'll just take the data set and upload it to some LLM and say, find us the 10 most sensitive documents, and rely on that. It shortcuts, it reduces their own human
Yeah.
resources
But
needs for sure.
kudos to the attackers. That is the perfect use case for Gen AI. Like, applaud them. They found the right problem with the right solution. Maybe we need to play like a book or a chapter from their book there. Like, that's a perfect time saving for them.
So I'm going to pause this, and also because we need to pivot to another story. But funny fact here, Devin, I met Leonardo. Like, I talked with Leonardo last week, and I kept calling him by his full given name, Leonardo. And he was like, "This is freaking me out. Don't do this. My name is Leo." And he'd never heard of the Hey Leonardo song from Blessed Union of Souls. Sorry, that was definitely ADHD kicking in. But I just want to highlight, because I do think whatever he's probably putting here is not malware and is probably a good take.
It is a very good post.
Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus's take is spot on.
And Marcus, for those of you that probably, if you don't have the name, he's the gentleman that found the kill switch in some of the famous malware many, many, many years ago. Also, unfortunately, was met by some of my former colleagues, the FBI, when he was at an event. So he has a very experienced past. His comment there is quite comical, actually. He's like, "I don't write malware, but," and he gives a pretty good analysis.
So
I love it so
I have a-
much
I have a
for
different
our audience.
So I come from the underwriting side, where obviously I'm evaluating whether or not I want to do risk or not. And my question comes from talking about not just AI, but also the basics. And I wonder how much time and how much energy is being spent thinking about evading the additional risk that AI comes. And are we still letting basics on cyber hygiene and privacy still go unaddressed? Because I still think a lot of the biggest claims we've seen come out this year still come down to things that are not necessarily giant technical errors. It's basics. So would love to hear your guys' feedback overall on, are we allowing AI to take up too much bandwidth for our thoughts right now?
So I think you're spot on. The challenge with AI right now is that it amplifies a lot of the existing security challenges. Take file sharing, for example. One of the most common things that I hear right now is that when people are rolling out Microsoft Copilot, they're suddenly realizing that people have overshared documents. So I was talking with a CISO last week. He said, "Yeah, we just rolled this out, and somebody was doing some budgeting work, and it pulled in a file that was overshared, which included all of the employee's salary information for the whole company. And so, of course, it was a cited document. And so that employee then got to go see everyone's salary, right? And I'm sure they closed their eyes and weren't curious at all. But those are the sorts of things that are starting to pop up. It's the basics there. And that's always been a hard challenge to try to solve. But yeah, there is risk with AI. We don't want to ignore that. But there are a lot of other things to tackle as well to make sure that you're going to protect yourself, because that's the current risk. Like, that's where you're going to get punched in the face today. The AI stuff, like, that's coming in the future.
Was that an?
I agree with that. I think for some people, AI it transforms them into a super powered individual. They become all of their skills become heightened. They're able to do their jobs better, faster, stronger. They can work, be more productive. Their leisure becomes easier. But for other people, it does become a substitute for thinking. And you can almost see where, almost like a satirical type of sketch where someone says, "Oh, someone's talking to me. Let me feed that into generative AI to figure out what I should say back to this person." And we do risk as a society the over reliance on automation and AI, and I do think that there's going to be effects in the workforce and in the risk area that we're not able to quantify right now. And so how that's all related to the basics. I agree with you, Adriana. That's our strategy, is let's start from the basics and reinforce some of our common sense thinking when it comes to cyber and data privacy too. When you're looking at your data and figuring out what you have before you start buying the fanciest AI widget, just start with, taking a survey, take out the pen and paper and just, what do you have? So that's a rudimentary example, but I agree with the sentiments that there's the proverbial slippery slope out there. But on the other hand, I love it and I use it all the time, and it does make me, I think, a more productive worker, and
you get to be more creative. We've talked about that too, is it gives you more creative time because the tedious stuff that, used to be a bottleneck is something you can address.
Yeah, so there's an online debate right now. We're going way outside of cyber, but about whether or
This
not
is
AI
heavy
generated.
episode.
I know it's okay. It's so much fun to talk about, but the issue is AI generated artwork beautiful? Does it qualify as aesthetic? Does it qualify as art in the traditional sense, or is it cheating? Is it because the models were taught using other existing art that was licensed and copyrighted at some point, and not necessarily given the full credit for those ideas? Does it qualify? And I really have read into both sides of the argument, and I don't know 100% which way I go. I think I do lean towards the size that it is art. I think it's a new tool to create art. And to build off of what Violet said, I mean, many of you follow me on LinkedIn. I have amplified my content using AI, and even just with visuals, by creating visual content that I was never heretofore able to do. I always had a lot of great ideas, but my hands couldn't draw the picture. Now I can do that. I still think they're my ideas, and I still think they look cute. But
for the record, Stu loves to send us Sora videos, and they're fantastic. So he is all in on it, and he is very good at it.
More coming to LinkedIn.
There's a teaser there. Adriana, what's your story? What have you been thinking about this week?
I am thinking back to conversations I had at Net Diligence a couple of weeks back. And I wonder, again, as an underwriter and as industry, if we are letting privacy just go, not unchecked. I think we're thinking about it, but I think it's become too check the box. And I worry right now that the focus continues to be on first party losses when really the losses are stacking up on the third party side, whether that be media, whether that be privacy, or tech overall. So I love going to these conferences. I love having these conversations, and I wish often that we could focus on the other side of the insurance product that is driving losses, I think, and loss trends across the board, and loss development on tails that are 7, 8, 9 years longer than what we'd expect. When we see a hack, we talk about the things that are going down that are topical right now. Yes, we might have an idea of what the burn might look like, but it's just a little bit trickier. So I think that's something that I would love to see more public discourse about. And I wonder, what we can do to kind of create that space to make sure that we are training people, not just AI models, to kind of understand that risk overall and how we can make all of our insurance and all of our clients just sharper to those kind of losses.
So how should we be thinking about that risk?
I think we need to, it's the basics. It comes down to basics and understanding all the ways that things could go wrong. I always looked at when you think about what underwriting is, it's whether or not you can have insurance, how much can you have, and what limit. It's really the basics on that kind of stuff. And I think right now there are risks that should be uninsurable that are definitely being insured. And if they're uninsurable, are we meeting the need market wise to appropriately address those and underwrite those? I'm not sure. On tech, it just comes down to, are we really understanding what we're offering insurance to? Is it really a product for someone else, built by somebody else? Or is it, your own internal, tech that you're building? I think there's a lot of confusion and misunderstanding. I mean, with AI, media is such an interesting topic that we're kind of diving into, and we're seeing that. And we're really just getting onto, I think, AI for privacy, that I think we're just in the very, very front stages of that. We'll see a lot, I think, coming out of California. And I think we'll see more and more underwriting considerations to AI being on that privacy aspect, not just on the tech.
I'm curious, Adriana, because we've talked about this before, where sometimes our marketing uses for things, like, there may be an AI endorsement, but it's more of a thing than it is a real product or, an enhancement. Like, how are buyers supposed to sift through, and brokers supposed to sift through the noise of what is used for marketing versus what we're actually doing from a cyber insurance perspective.
It's reading that policy. I know it's dry. I know, but it really comes down to reading the policy and understanding it. And hopefully you've got an excellent broker that's going to help you through that process as well to understand that. But I do think right now that the market's doing everything they can to step up to where they're not shortchanging the people that are looking to address this concern.
Don't ChatGPT your policy is what I'm hearing too. Is make sure you're actually talking with a real human broker to actually understand the nuance.
Even a real human lawyer, what I said might even be a nice suggestion as well.
Well, not all lawyers are human. All lawyers are human, but not all. Never mind. I would just say
You said like a true lawyer.
Yeah, I don't know. Adriana, the two things that you said together on the third party risk of the cyber policy, along with the AI, is I wonder whether AI would have predicted that the plaintiff's bar would utilize the VPPA, which was like a 40-year-old statute, to begin encompassing these wrongful collection type of theories of liability. And I agree with you. It does take some advanced human understanding of businesses and motivations and culture, litigious culture, etc., to really capture that third party part of the risk. And so I 100% agree. And I do think that is a growing area in the cyber risk model. And I'm not in that side of the house, but I from our practice, we do see quite a lot of those claims.
I remember when we looked at this product from the beginning, it started out as a third party type of exposure. And then the first party I remember when it wasn't even called cyber as a market, really. And then all of a sudden we need to kind of bring it back that it is security, it's privacy, it's regulatory, it's all these other things that we've let these forms become. So I think it's time to go back to our basics and really start underwriting and understanding those exposures for the market. That doesn't mean that we ignore, obviously, the cyber aspect of it, because that's ever evolving, ever changing. And I think that from my perspective as an underwriter, we've never had more information. There's never been more options for us to understand and really dive into the cyber culture and controls that are in place with most of our insureds. But I still think we're not doing enough to have those conversations with like a general counsel of what are you really doing to help mitigate on your end. And I don't want it to sound like we never do. We certainly do get a lot of perspectives that are very, very helpful. But I think it is a product that is both, and it will always be both. And right now there's not equal focus to both the first and the third party.
Well said. We have running out of time. Any predictions, Adriana, before we move on to our goodbyes?
I think globally, we're going to see some more continued getting close to stabilization in the U.S. market. I don't think that our global colleagues are quite there yet, but hoping that we are turning a corner. So that is my positive and hopeful prediction for Q1 next year.
Devin, how about you with some time running out in our show?
So I think globally we had roughly 37,000 documented CVEs in cyber last year. I think we're going to break 45,000 this year. That's my prediction.
That's a big prediction.
Prediction, we don't have to make it. We're quite certain. Violet, tell us, who are our guests for next month's show?
That was a wonderful lead-in. We have Anna Sarnak and David Cruz on for December 5th, 12 p.m. Eastern. And we're just loving this. If anyone wants to be on our show, please message us and one of us will kind of pull that information. But we have some fun people coming up, and this was such an excellent group. Thank you guys for being on.
In the meantime, please follow Devin, follow Adriana, of course, follow Jason, Violet, and me. And bring your holiday cheer for December, and we will see you next month. Thank you guys.